Hello, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for putting the topic of literacy and democracy on the agenda. Literacy has always been the key to accessing the resources and potential of a society and to collaborate, communicate, connect with people who are different from us. And that's always the heart of democracy. But in this age of information, the construct of literacy is evolving rapidly. When I went to school, literacy was about reading linear texts, books that had been carefully curated, authored. When I didn't know the answer to a question, I could look the answer up in a school book and I could trust that answer to be true. Nowadays, when students look up information in Google, they're going to find 10,000 answers to their questions, and nobody will tell them what's right and what's wrong, what's true and what is not true. Literacy is no longer just about extracting knowledge. It's more about constructing knowledge. And then contrast that with the fact that in our latest PISA assessment, just half of 15-year-olds could reliably distinguish fact from opinion. And our survey of adult skills, PIAC, shows that there are about 200 million workers in the OECD countries who don't read as well as what you would expect from a 10-year-old child. There is a lot of people who will become easy victims of fake news, and that's where lack of literacy skills really threatens our democracies. In the current digital ecosystem, virality is often privileged over quality in the distribution of information. And combined with low levels of public trust in experts, the consequences manifest themselves directly politically. Truth and fact are losing currency in decision making and also in democratic choices. Assertions which sort of feel right, but which have no basis in fact, become accepted as valid, even if just on the grounds that they challenge, elites and vested interests. And this is where reality is becoming fungible. And, post-truths may have more to do with consumers of lies than with their producers, actually. Algorithms that sort us into groups of like-minded individuals create social media echo chambers that amplify our own views but leave us uninformed of opposing novel arguments that polarize our societies, and all that with a significant impact on democratic processes. The prominent use of algorithm in the social media space contributes to siloization, creating these virtual bubbles that homogenize opinions, that insulate people from divergent views that would challenge their beliefs. When I was a student and would have told my neighbor, the earth is flat, well, they would have told me, you're crazy. Just look out of the window. You can see it for yourself. Well, nowadays, I can find millions of digital neighbors who confirm the earth is flat to amplify my own perspectives and views. And those algorithms are not a design flaw. They are really the heart of why social media actually work. The biggest asset in life now is getting people's attention. There is scarcity of attention and an abundance of information. Digitalization is connecting people, cities, countries, continents in ways that vastly increase our, not just individual, but also our collective potential. Any of us can now, change the world for better or for worse. Together we can address the world's most formidable challenges. But digitalization has also made this world more complex, more volatile, more uncertain. Digitalization can be incredibly democratizing. We can connect and collaborate with anyone. But digitalization can also concentrate incredible powers. Think about, the technology industry. Digitalization can be incredibly particularizing. The smallest voice can be heard anywhere now. But it can also be incredibly homogenizing, squashing individual differences and cultural uniqueness. Digitalization can be incredibly empowering. Think about the new entrepreneurs in startups. But it can also be incredibly disempowering. Think about how we become so easily slaves of algorithms that we no longer understand. We're living in this digital bazaar where anything that isn't built for the network age is cracking apart under its pressures. This is the age of accelerations, the speeding up of human experience through the compound impact of so many disruptive forces on every aspect of our lives. And this is also the time of political contestation. The priority of the wider international community is to reconcile the needs and interests of individuals, of communities, of nations, within an equitable framework that is based on open borders, a sustainable future. But where disruption has brought a sense of dislocation, political forces emerge that are offering us the prospect of closed borders, the protection of traditional jobs, and a promise to put the interest of today's generation over those of the future. The fake news phenomenon just amplifies all of those forces. The question is then, how can we live successfully in this new world of information? To what extent should we approach the problem from a consumer protection angle, work on this from the supply side, or from a literacy angle? That is, strengthen the capacity of people to just better navigate, triangulate information. It's interesting that we haven't touched knowledge in the same way that we address consumer protection issues with physical products. People have sued McDonald's when they feel too fat, or, they sued Starbucks when they burn themselves with hot coffee. But it just seems very difficult to do anything against those who produce and deliver fake news. And that's because tinkering with free speech tends to be felt as an immediate threat to democratic principles. And probably rightly so. The result is that the market for information remains totally unregulated. We are the products. Can and should we place certain constraints on behavior and pronouncements of the influential, the powerful in the information world? Can and should we introduce more robust standards for our gatekeepers, the journalists who play such an important role in holding power to account? Maybe has the time come to extend consumer protection to voters? And if we do so, where will this restrict freedom of speech and creativity and knowledge creation? Other important aspects. Transparency in political advertising and the social media space also probably merits some closer attention given its increasingly prevalent use. The degree and sophistication of targeting techniques that are being deployed are really astounding. And they are poorly understood by the majority of social media users. That is clearly a problem. And maybe, the role of social media platforms needs to evolve in recognition of the fact that they, have in fact, become publishers of news, of information that people consume. They have a key role to play in stemming the flow of fake news, both by being more transparent in the algorithms they use, but also by adapting them in order to sort of deprioritize fake news content. There's clearly a need for trusted brands and a need for trusted journalism. And markets will always drive towards trusted brands. All of that is worth consideration. But the question remains how far, pushing the supply side alone is going to work. Technology is moving so fast, and it seems at least as important to strengthen the capacity of people to navigate this world of information through advanced literacy skills. This is the literacy dimension of the phenomenon. Still the post-truth information age demands far more from people than navigate information. Literacy has become a lot more than that. In these times, literacy needs to provide people with a reliable compass and the navigation tools to find their own way through this increasingly complex, volatile world. As future jobs will pair artificial intelligence with the human knowledge, the skills, the character qualities and values, it's going to be our capacity for innovation, our awareness, our ethical judgment, and our sense of responsibility that will equip us to harness machines to shape the world for the better and to deal with more complex information sources which people are facing. That is the literacy of the 21st century now. So, not surprisingly, schools increasingly recognize the need for fostering ethics, for fostering character, for fostering citizenship. And they aim to develop an increasingly wide range of social and emotional skills, such as empathy, compassion, mindfulness, purposefulness, responsibility, collaboration, self-regulation. In this structurally imbalanced world, the imperative of being able to reconcile different perspectives, different interests in local settings, but often with global implications. That's going to require people to become really adept in handling tensions, dilemmas, trade-offs, striking that balance in specific circumstances between, competing demands. Think of equity and freedom, or autonomy and community, or innovation and continuity, or efficiency and democratic process. And those are rarely going to lead to either or choices or even a single solution. People need to think a lot more in integrated ways that avoid, premature conclusions and that attend to those inner relationships, those inner connections. The construct that underpins the competency include, empathy, adaptability, trust. Dealing with novelty, with change, with diversity, with ambiguity assumes that people can truly think for themselves, navigate complexity with a robust moral compass. And that requires a sense of responsibility and of moral, of intellectual maturity, with which a person can reflect on, but also evaluate what they do in light of their own experiences, but also in light of personal and societal goals. What they have been taught and what they have been told and what is right or what is wrong. The perception of, what is right and what is wrong, good or bad in a specific situation is always about ethics. It's about asking questions related to norms, to values, to meanings, to limits. And that too is a really, really important part of the literacy of the 21st century. Last but not least, we need to address the underlying trust deficit, What has become clear in recent political debates is that citizens want and expect a voice. Citizens are demanding a systemic shift, a more agile form of democracy and government, more participative, more responsiveness to their needs, to their views, to their values. Harnessing the power of the digital transformation of civic tech can help governments be more open, be more transparent, be more innovative, be more inclusive in how they go about, policy making, budgeting, or even, service provision. I know none of this is easy and none of this can be done overnight, but we need to make headway to build the literacy skills of the 21st century, because those are the foundations of our democracies. And people who cannot find that floor of skills under their feet are likely the ones who are going to build walls around them. Thank you very much.